Welcome to the second video of our course on public speaking. As usual, I'm Mahir Abdul Nasar, and today we will be talking about the 7 elements of a speech. Now, it's very, very important that you understand these elements, because once you've mastered these elements, it's easy for you to participate in any type of public speaking, whether it's a debate or you're pitching a sales idea or anything related. And before we begin with the elements themselves, I want to draw your attention to something a little bit more different that is analogous to public speaking, and it's a little unexpected. It's a suit. Yeah, the suit that we wear. I know it's a little strange, but I'll break it down for you. You see, the suit is my favorite piece of clothing. Why? Because it's very, very versatile. If we need to wear a suit to the office, we use more neutral colors, right? Like gray, black, navy blue. If we need to wear a suit to a party, maybe we would ditch the tie. We just wear, the suit and the shirt with the coat and the shirt without a tie. Maybe you could use jeans and khakis instead of the other trousers that you use. Or maybe it's a slightly more auspicious occasion, and so you need to dress up a little bit more like a wedding. So you wear a tuxedo. In this case, the coat changes. The lapels of the coat is changed. Instead of wearing a necktie, you wear a bow tie. If you need a little bit more, maybe you're going sailing, or maybe you're going to a country club or something like that, where you don't need to dress up much. You could wear a double-breasted jacket with some khaki pants and a white shirt. But what I need you guys to pay attention here is that it's the main elements are the same, right? It's always a coat, it's always a shirt, it's always a pant, it's always a watch, it's always a shoe. But depending upon the occasion and the situation that the person is in, he changes or she changes those individual elements, right? Like I said, the color changes. It's still a coat, it's still a pant, it's still a shirt, but the color has changed. It's maybe the style has changed, the material has changed, like that. So the overall elements are still the same. And it's these tiny elements that allow us to make it so versatile. The same thing goes for public speaking. Now, public speaking and speeches in general have a few certain elements that we need to keep in mind. And depending upon the situation we are in, we need to change those elements, right? If we're talking at a wedding or with family, then you could be more colloquial, use more jokes, refer to the audience personally. But if you're talking in a slightly more formal place, like you're at a meeting in the office or you're pitching an idea to investors, then you can't refer to your investors as personally and make inside jokes. You need to be a little bit more formal and a little bit more politically correct. This is how changing elements is going to come into use. So let's get down to it, shall we? The first element that we need to keep in mind is the speaker. Many people often forget that the speaker themselves is the presentation. The most important part of speaking is not what you're saying, it's how you're saying. It's you. And that is what differentiates a good speaker and a bad speaker. They may have the same points, but the good speaker knows how to convey them. It knows the tone they need to use. It knows the way the speech needs to flow. Many speakers often forget that they are the presentation themselves. And you could use a colorful presentation and a bunch of graphics to, captivate the audience and keep their attention. But it's up to the speaker themselves to convey the message in a manner that not only captivates audience, but also allows the information to be kept with the audience for a very, very long period of time. We all remember really memorable speakers, right? No one remembers someone who spoke at a wedding, but there are famous speeches that were made, like Jawaharlal Nehru's A Tryst with Destiny, the speech he made at midnight when India got independence on August 15th, 1947. Now, there are a few factors that we need to understand about the speaker when it comes to a speech, and that is the motivation for making the presentation. Why are we making this presentation? Why is it important to us? The credibility as a speaker. How experienced is this speaker in the topic? Does he actually know what he's talking about, or is it just some copy paste from the internet? His style and personality, and to communicate his knowledge and ideas. What are the methods that he uses? Is he funny? Is he more logical and does not really put more jokes, but is more fact oriented and gives more statistics and data to support his arguments? Or is he more, catering to the emotions of the people and touching the soft side in people that allows them, to keep his message in their mind? The next is the message. Now, this element of the speech is the most important, also one of the most important. Delivering the message in your speech with clarity, precision, and accuracy makes the speech more professional and captivating. Now, the message of a speech can broadly be classified into three parts. Them being the content, that is what we are talking about, the main points we are delivering, what we want to convey, the style of the speech. Like I mentioned earlier, at a wedding, we're more informal. We can refer to the family members. We can make more jokes. But somewhere at like a model United Nations, we have to be more formal. Avoid the use of personal pronouns. Be very diplomatic and politically correct. And the last is the structure. This part is very important. A connected chain of logic and arguments makes this speech more straightforward. A good introduction captivates the audience and that is a priceless commodity in the world of public speaking. Let me break that down to you. A good chain of logic and arguments. What that means is, let's say we're talking about corruption, right? So at the start of our speech, we can maybe give a little bit of a story, right? Or a quote by some famous politician who stood against corruption. And we introduce to the audience that today, at this point in time, I'm going to be talking about corruption. And whatever further points that we make in the next part of our speech always has to hint back to the point we made at the start of our speech, that is, today I'm talking about corruption and why is it bad. All the points that we make have to be connected over there, and they have to connect with one another. You can't start somewhere and end at another point. The audience need to understand how you got from point A to point B in your speech. That's what a connected chain of arguments and logic means, and it is very, very important in your speech. The next is the audience. Before you go and speak, it's always a good idea to scope the audience. See who you're dealing with, who you're speaking to, the ethnicity of the crowd, their age, overall age, their gender, and things like that. Maybe if you're talking with a crowd that is majoritarily filled with Arabs, it would probably be a good idea maybe to start with like a salam. Maybe use common phrases in Arabic, common phrases of that country. Crack a joke that is some related to the Middle East, not a bad one. But yeah, so this is how looking at the audience is going to help you in the speech. The channel. Using channels like the auditory, visual, and non-verbal channel can help in emphasizing points. The non-verbal channel includes gestures, facial expressions, and body movements and physical posture. The visual channel includes things like diagrams, charts, and the PowerPoint presentations that we use. And lastly, the auditory channel includes the tone of our voice, variation in volume, and other audio materials. Now, after this video, I'm going to post another video, and that is the finals of a Toastmaster speech. And I really want you to look at how he talks, like, especially the channels that he uses, his body movements, his expression, and his physical posture. You'll note that he starts off in a rather unusual way, an unconventional way. That is to captivate the audience. He has visual channels like he doesn't use much diagrams because he doesn't have a computer with him, but he uses the non-verbal channel and the auditory channel very well. And those are the two of our biggest weapons as a public speaker. And I'm going to post this after the after this video. The second last is the feedback. When you speak in public, you must be attentive to the non-verbal reactions of your audience and be prepared to respond to the reactions of the public during the presentation. The responsibility of a professional speaker is to provide your audience with all the information they need to hear, right? So especially if maybe you're speaking to journalists, you should try to gauge how they're feeling, and maybe even when you're speaking and you're conveying something that's slightly strikes an emotion in our heart, using a speech to look at and try to understand how the audience will react, and trying to change your speech in that manner. If it's something that's slightly sad, then you might want to make the speech a little bit more sentimental. So that is how we change the elements of a speech according to the feedback of the public. And the last element of a public speech is the noise. Now, there are two types of noise that a public speaker should know. The first is the external noise, and the second is internal. Now, I know this is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll go through it. The external noise is things like maybe someone is coughing, basically things that are happening in the place we're speaking. In today's time, I think even bad Wi-Fi and a bad mic can count for external noise. Basically, anything that does not allow the audience to hear us clearly. And internal noise refers to the speaker themselves, some sort of confusion on the topic, and conveys an unclear message about what that person wants to express. Thank you so much for joining us today, and stay tuned for the next video. It'll be up next week.